I'm Sergeant Ralph Woolfolk with the Atlanta Police Department and a supervisor here at the Atlanta Police Training Academy. Our team here at the Atlanta Police Academy is excited to bring you this active shooter presentation that we believe contains critical information that may come in handy if you encounter an active shooter situation. While this training is not intended to frighten you or to make you overly paranoid concerning the topic, it is important to understand the need of having a plan in the event you find yourself in an active shooter situation. Studies indicate that taking a small amount of time to familiarize yourself with an emergency plan can aid in reducing injuries and save lives. The number of active shooter incidents throughout our country continues to grow. In 2018, the FBI released a report indicating 50 active shooter incidents took place in the country in 2016 and 2017, which was 10 more than in the previous 2 years. Of the 50 incidents that took place, 21 states across the country were impacted, killing 221 and wounding 722 people. Though the primary areas of occurrence were places of commerce, it is important to note that these events can happen anywhere, including, but not limited to, education environments, places of business, open spaces, healthcare facilities, government property, and houses of worship. Often people ask, what's the profile of an active shooter? And the answer is there isn't one. According to an FBI report on pre-attack behaviors of active shooters, the age of the shooter ranged from 13 to 64, consisted of both male and female genders, and included persons of varying races and ethnicities. Ultimately, there's no way to look at someone and tell if they're going to be an active shooter. However, many of these shooters did show pre-attack concerning behaviors. Evidence of planning and preparation was discovered. They acquired firearms, and in many cases were motivated by some form of grievance, whether a realistic or delusional idea that they had been treated unjustly. This video is broken down into 3 categories, which will be taught by a member from our team. Senior Patrol Officer Mike Banja will discuss disaster response psychology and how the human brain and body tend to work when a person is exposed to a violent experience. SPO Banja is a 17-year veteran of the Atlanta Police Department and assigned to the Atlanta Police Training Academy as an instructor and use of force expert. Sergeant Krieger and Senior Patrol Officer Paul Merritt will identify a few case studies that we believe will aid in presenting a few learning takeaways. Sergeant Krieger supervises the Critical Incident Response Unit in the Atlanta Police Academy and specializes in officer tactics, while SPO Merritt is a 27-year veteran of the Atlanta Police Department, having spent 15 years on the SWAT team. Investigator Emma Mills will provide you with a short acronym to help you remember some critical response options in the event of an active shooter incident. Emma Mills is a 16-year veteran of the Atlanta Police Department and teaches at the Atlanta Police Academy. We hope that you find this video useful. It's important to note the development and production of this video would not have been possible without the contributions and research conducted by our federal partners at the FBI and DOJ. Here in Atlanta, we are fortunate to have such great support from our federal partners, as well as surrounding municipalities that fall within our jurisdiction. It is certainly a team effort in working to keep each and every one of our valued citizens safe each day.
I'm Mike Banja. I'm a senior police officer assigned to the City of Atlanta Police Academy. Before developing a plan of action, or even discussing specific events, let's identify some of the things that take place in the human brain and body when a person is exposed to a violent experience. It's highly important to understand and recognize these feelings and reactions because our survival depends on being able to work through some of them and use others to our advantage. The word physiology is defined as the branch of biology dealing with the functions and activities of living organisms and their parts, including all physical and chemical processes. Our brains take in information about the world around us and use what we've stored in there to put the body into motion. Some of these reactions are automatic. Some of them are trained, learned behaviors. While you've been listening to me, you've been blinking your eyes. You never made a conscious decision to blink. Your body did it automatically. So let's unpack some of the brain and body's natural physiological reactions to something scary happening in front of us. Because we live in a largely safe and secure environment, our first reaction to something abnormal might be denial. This is one of the first things that we want to change in order to increase our chances of survival in a violent emergency. We tend to tease people who have a strong flinch or startle response to a loud noise or a sudden approach. In reality, these reactions give you a faster reaction time to an emergency. Having a debate in your mind about whether or not what you just heard is gunshots or fireworks, screaming or laughing, a false alarm or a real emergency can add unnecessary time to getting yourself and your loved ones out of danger. Never rationalize things that startle you. Instead, put your plan into place and calmly assume that what caught your attention did so for a good reason, deserves to be taken seriously. Our brain changes the way we process all of that incoming information when we get scared. Different hormones start firing off that cause distortion to sight and hearing and can make us freeze or flinch. If your natural tendency is to freeze when you're startled, start planning to break this. One step in any direction makes you a more difficult target to hit and can start your body into either fight or flight, but freezing is not optimal for surviving an emergency. Another physiological response to an emergency is something called tunnel vision. Our focus gets stuck on the thing that scared us and can be difficult to break. Trying to run the other way while looking at a thing that scared you can increase your chances of tripping or falling. Let's do a simple exercise to work on breaking tunnel vision. I'll do something that most people will be immediately startled by. You follow along with the instructions. As quick as you can, look to the nearest door. Now look back at me. Look at the nearest window. Now look back at me. Now let your vision jump around the room and think about objects that you could use to defend yourself. Fire extinguishers, computers, other objects that we'll talk about later. It could be improvised as weapons. But first, we have to be able to find them, along with escape routes. If you struggled with that exercise, do it again. Your eyes and ears might play tricks on you. Some sounds will be louder than normal, and others, like gunshots, might sound more like clapping or small fireworks. Your fingers might not work as well as they normally do. Fine motor skills like using keys or dialing a number on a cell phone may be very difficult under stress. An uncomfortable reality is that human beings tend to lose control of the bladder and bowels under extreme stress. This is natural. Just think, if you're gross, the bear might not want to eat you. Don't let it freeze you if you have an accident. Put the plan into place and move. So we've identified some things to expect during a violent emergency. Please think about them often. The more that we condition ourselves not to rationalize our fears and to understand the things that quickly happen in our brain or body, the faster that we'll be able to get moving. My friends will discuss several different plans and options later. But for now, let's think about what our responsibilities are and how they might be affected by our physiology. I'm a police officer, but I'm also a dad. My kids were very young, about 3 years old. I started teaching them a reaction to two simple words. When I said the words "on me," both of my kids would put one hand on my belt. I didn't teach them to grab onto me, because if I moved quickly and they were grabbing me, it might knock them off balance. I didn't hold their hand, because my hands might be full if I had to carry one of them, or my hands might be otherwise occupied during an emergency. If I could feel their hand on my belt, I didn't need to look at them. I knew where they were. Didn't matter how fast I was moving. And we did this everywhere, going in and out of grocery stores, large crowds, school, busy parking lots. We've done this thousands of times. And I feel very confident that if I ever needed to evacuate a place quickly, that my kids would be conditioned and rehearsed enough to make it out with me, even with all the scary things happening around us. and the physiological processes happening inside of us. We must be able to recognize what our mind and body are doing and still be able to start our plan into action.
I'm Sergeant Krieger with the Critical Incident Training Unit. Today I'm going to speak about a few case studies of active shooter incidents. On May 31st, 2019, a current employee of the Virginia Beach Public Utility Department shot one person in the parking lot outside of Building 2 of the Virginia Beach Municipal Center. News reports state that the suspect was seen by other employees entering the building with a pistol in hand. The suspect then entered the building and reportedly began shooting indiscriminately on all 3 floors. 12 people were killed. An additional 6 people were shot. Some people who were in the building and heard the gunshots stated that they thought the sound of the gunshots were from a nail gun. Key takeaways: if you see something, say something. If you witness an obvious threat, contact the police. Number 2, don't be an easily available victim. Active shooter situations are dynamic. The shooters are looking for easily available victims. An easily available victim is a person who is within eyeshot or earshot of the suspect. You must take action immediately. You need to have a basic response plan to create distance between you and the threat. Additionally, know where you can go to securely hide yourself from the suspect. The next study covers the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School shooting that occurred on February 14, 2018. The shooter, who was an expelled student, was taken by Uber to the school. A school employee who was familiar with the shooter saw him walking across the campus carrying a rifle bag. The employee notified another employee but did not make widespread notification. The shooter entered the building and shot several victims on the ground floor. The students on the second floor heard the shooting. All the classroom doors were locked and the students moved away from the doors. As a result, no one was shot on the second floor. The suspect then moved to the third floor and shot several more victims. Throughout the shooting, the suspect never entered a classroom. All of the victims were either shot in the hallway or through the classroom doors. Once law enforcement arrived, the suspect blended in with the students who were fleeing the building. The suspect was arrested later that day, a short distance from the school. 17 people, 14 students, and 3 staff members were killed. An additional 17 people were wounded but survived. Key takeaways. Number 1, again, if you see something, say something. One of the best things that you can do to save lives is to notify potential victims of the threat. This can allow everyone time to process the information and take action before the threat is in the immediate area. Number 2, be prepared to help save lives. You are all immediate responders. According to a report by the American College of Surgeons, the best thing an immediate responder can do to help save lives is control life-threatening bleeding. If a victim is suffering from an arterial bleed, we only have minutes to save their life. The best way to control arterial bleeding is by applying a tourniquet. There are several quality tourniquets available that are easy to apply. Invest in the training needed to properly use a tourniquet.
According to an annual report generated by the FBI, there were 27 active shooter incidents in the United States in 2018. One of the 27 shooters was killed by a citizen. There were 3 incidents where unarmed citizens confronted the shooter, ending the shooting. Additionally, there were 2 incidents where an armed citizen exchanged gunfire with the shooter. One of the incidents resulted in the death of the shooter. The other incident caused the shooter to flee. 18.5% of active shooter incidents were concluded due to citizen response. 59% of the 27 active shooter incidents took place in business environments, 33% in areas open to the public. Are you prepared in the unfortunate event your business is next? Let's look at some ways citizens can prepare for their response to active shooter incidents. We will use the acronym APD, Action, Prevent, Defend, to look at ways you can respond during an active shooter incident. Before we examine the APD model of citizen response, it is imperative that the citizen know that the APD model can be used in any order. Based on the circumstances, citizens might have to begin in the defend phase or the prevent phase of the model. A, action. When faced with an active shooter, making quick decisions can be the difference between life and death. Your proximity to the active shooter will determine how much time you have to make a life-saving decision. This is the action phase of citizen response. The first key in the action phase is to listen. Listen for gunshots, other people, announcements, and descriptions if available. Now it's time to take action. A citizen's course of action will be determined by a number of factors, but mainly their location in relation to the actual shooting and nearest exit. When time permits, the optimal decision would require the citizen to avoid the shooter by evacuating or escaping. The active shooter has a mission to kill as many people in an area as possible. By escaping or evacuating, you can help to deter that mission. There are times when the shooting will be distant enough that you feel safe to evacuate or escape. Run as far away from the facility as possible. Your facility should have an emergency plan and layout of the building, which includes the closest emergency exit to your location. Always familiarize yourself with your facility and nearby exits. In the event you do not have the ability to evacuate or escape, you have to decide if you have time to barricade yourself in your workspace. Ask yourself these questions. Is there a door leading to your office? Does the door open out or in? Do you have an object to use as a barricade? Can you lock your door from the inside? Again, knowing the layout of your facility and office space and practicing for emergencies will aid in the action phase of citizen response. P, prevent. In the event you cannot evacuate or escape, you will quickly progress into the prevent or defend phase of citizen response. During the prevent phase, the citizen will address multiple areas of concern. The prevention phase requires the citizen to prevent the active shooter from entering their workspace. How can you prevent an active shooter from entering your workspace? Sometimes turning off the lights and locking the door in your space will prevent the active shooter from entering your space. An active shooter's goal is to kill as many people as possible before being killed or apprehended. A locked door may require more time than the active shooter is willing to waste in order to enter your space. What do you have in your workspace that can be utilized in the event you cannot escape? Did you know an object as simple as a belt can be used to mimic a locked door? Tying the belt around the doorknob and pulling it as you stand away from the door will require the active shooter to slow down, take his focus off of open space, and focus on entering your space. Have you planned for the unexpected? Planning will aid in the prevent phase of citizen response. Knowing your space well enough to prevent access is the key to prevention. We will now discuss tips for preventing law enforcement delays. It is also relevant to understand what you need to do should you encounter law enforcement to prevent additional casualties or unnecessary delays. Police will be on high alert once they enter an active shooter situation. Unless you are preparing to defend yourself, you should be prepared to aid police. By aiding police, you will make it clear that you are not the active shooter by always raising your empty hands above your head. Answer any questions, but do not ask questions or run to the police. Run past the police and away from the gunshots if there is still an active shooter in your facility. If the shooting has stopped and police are sweeping the building when they come to your space, keep your hands in the air and follow the instructions given. D, defend. In the event you are faced with an active shooter, you may have to defend yourself against attack. If the shooter enters your area, time is of the essence. You may not have time to escape. The defend phase may require you picking up a heavy object and throwing it at the shooter or hiding very quickly. No matter what decision you make a quick decision. If time allows, you can work with others in your workspace to quickly devise a plan. That plan may include attacking the shooter or escaping. 2 of the 27 shooters of 2018 fled the scene after being confronted by citizens. According to the FBI, in 2018, citizens risked their lives to safely and successfully end the shootings in 5 of the 27 active shooter incidents. Training and preparation are best practices in any emergency situation. In order to feel confident exercising any of the phases of APD, it is imperative that citizens take the time to train and plan for the unexpected.
For more detailed information and resources regarding civilian response to active shooter events, please visit the websites featured on the screen. These are some of our trusted partners that have provided valuable insights and training to our department regarding active shooter preparedness. On behalf of Chief Shields, Assistant Chief Coit, Deputy Chief Crayer, and our Academy Commander, Major Collier, we hope this video has been insightful and helpful in your active shooter preparedness.